Hey everybody, welcome to the Multifamily Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Peterson, and today is going to be another great day in podcast heaven. We are going to talk about, we're going back to the basics of multifamily investing, and today we are going to talk about the secret language of multifamily investing, and some of the languages that you've got to know, that you've got to understand to make sure that people, your brokers and vendors and stuff like that, don't think that you're just a brand new newbie. That's the worst thing that can happen. And maybe it's not the worst thing that can happen because we all got to start somewheres. But it sure helps to look and sound and feel like it's not your first rodeo. And to do that, you've got to understand the language, because language is different than the single family investing world. So, but before we get into that, let's just listen. I love it when you guys take the time to give me some feedback and give me those reviews on iTunes. So we're just going to jump right into it with a couple. So this comes from Miranda Willa. She goes, "Boss, Corey is a boss." Hey, listen, that's cool. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And it really does warm my heart. So thank you, Miranda. Rihanna Jamelia says, "Best commercial real estate podcast. I can't believe how many ratings and reviews this podcast is for a real estate show. More than I have personally seen. Thought I'd add to it. This is an incredible and interesting commercial real estate podcast." So thank you. I got one more. So from Esme Sydney says, "Check it out. I love this show because the host gives many useful tips for investing in real estate, and he does it in a way that is missing on other shows. You'll grow so much by listening in." So listen, I love it when you guys take the time to do that. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it does let us know that you're listening and you're active. And we have been just getting troves and troves of written reviews of our show has grown by leaps and bounds. I think we're almost truly around 25 to 30,000 downloads a month, which is, so the word's getting out. This thing is really taking a lot of momentum. And so do your part to help us share, like, subscribe, do all those things. Get the word out that this is the podcast where you get to grow and learn and truly move the needle. Okay, so with that said, couple of things that's going on in Kahuna Land. We are now in phases of opening up our Apartments to Millions Summit that we're going to be having in April. So this is going to be a great summit. We've got a great speaker lineup. And so if you'd like to learn more about that, go to a2mlive.com. So a2mlive.com. You can get it. But it's going to be a great show. Or a great event, and great people, great speakers, and really we're going to bring the magic. And I think that's what's missing. A lot of times the speakers have like such little time spans to actually speak and get like detailed. So we've changed that format. We're giving them plenty of time, and we're really requesting and asking them to give us like detailed steps of how to, so you guys can get educated. And then honestly, it's the place where if you have money, deals, partnerships, all those things are formed with these types of events, and you'll not want to miss out on this one. All right, well, we're back, so let's jump right into it. Let's talk about that secret language of apartment investing, and why does it matter? I think it matters for this reason. We all need to get investors and brokers, mainly brokers, to understand that we are not the new green guy that's never locked up anything. And so what I want to do is I'm going to simply go through some list of words and talk about what they are, what they mean, just to get you kind of educated. Because sometimes even if you're hearing this new for the second time or third time, it's never too bad to come back and just refresh yourself on what all these things mean and how it works. So, we'll talk about gross. So we're going to start jumping into it. And I'm really kind of looking at a P&L when I'm looking at this, because when we're talking with brokers, a lot of times we're going to be talking about the financials. And we want to have good conversations to understand and make sure we're all on the same page. So gross scheduled rents, right? That is the income. It's the annual income of a property if all rentable spaces were in fact rented and all the rent was collected. In short, it's the maximum potential income without regard to any possible vacancy or credit losses. Okay, that's your gross scheduled rents. Vacancy. Vacancy, it represents the percent or the amount of income loss from non-lease units. That's pretty explanatory. I can't even say it right. But then we start getting to what's other income, right? Other income is income from fees, like laundry fees, vending machines, pet fees, application fees. All that stuff is other income, and you see a lot of it in a lot of properties, right? You're like, wow, this is another income stream here. And then we have, what's RUBS? RUBS, there's RUBS on this property. What's RUBS? RUBS is a residential utility bill-back system, and it's income received for billing back a portion of like the water or the sewer, trash, things like that. So RUBS, we get RUBS on almost every property. We start a RUBS program, if not already done, on almost every single property that we buy. It's one of the easiest ways to start making some additional money. If you had rents that were $625 or for a unit, and then you said, hey, it's $625, that's what you market it as, and then you say, then there's a $25 water, sewer, trash, and so you did that and just made $25 extra without doing anything. That's one of the easiest ways to get a bump. Now, we usually don't add RUBS right away. Our process is we fix the broken stuff, we improve the plant, the physical plant, we get everything outside and inside looking good, and then we raise rents just because of that, right? But by fixing stuff up, and then it's usually in year 2 or year 3 that we'll start adding a RUBS program to get that additional rent increase. Meanwhile, we're still raising the rents a little bit each and every year as we renew leases. Okay, so it's a great way to make additional money. Then we come into your total income, right? Your total income is the amount of income minus all your vacancies and concessions, right? That's always the big line. We always I look at my total income line a lot. I want to make sure that, what are we doing on a month-to-month basis? I'm looking at that number more so. I look at the details, but I track first. I look at the numbers. If I'm on track with my goals, I don't always go into the details of that, right? That's not my job. I'm looking at the big picture, not all the granular stuff. We have an asset manager that jumps into the granular every month on every property and, asks the questions why. And that's important, right? But that's not what Corey, the owner, does. Okay, salaries and related. This is the expenses from your labor and wages, bonuses, rental bonuses. This is for your staff that's at the property, right? So it's not the management fee. This is for your people that actually work at your property, okay? Then you have advertising and promotion. This is your expenses from your, like it says, advertising, your pay-per-click, your Facebook, your websites, anything that, your apartments.com, all that stuff, that's your advertising and promotion line. And then you have your maintenance line. And your maintenance is usually your, going to go and some people do maintenance 2 different places. We like to do it once, and then we have a big subcategory of what all that stuff is. But that's all your make-readies and repairs, it's the repairs of units. Okay, a lot of times you'll see your contracts for lawn care, for pest control and stuff in this line as well. We tend to break that down a little bit more. We like it broken down a little bit more as well. And then you have your office administration, right? And that's for your cost of running the office, your phones, your software subscription, your paper supplies, the candy for the office, the stamps, the water, all the things that you do in your office, the toner, those types of things. That's what your office administration is doing. Your security. Now, a lot of times people don't have security at properties, or they don't have a line that even represents security. And I think you should. Because a lot of times you'll buy properties and maybe they have security, maybe they don't, but I don't always see lines added for this. And so I think it's important. Of course, your management fees, that's what you're going to pay your management every month. And typically that's between 3 to 4%. If you're paying more than that, you're probably paying too much. Maybe you need to shop around. But 3 to 4% seems to be the standard rate. Utilities, we all know what those are, so I'm not going to explain that. your total operating expenses, right? That's just your total. And then we get into this thing called NOI. And I don't know why, but people get so, weirded about NOI, but that's your net operating income. And all that is, it's simple. It's all the revenue from the property minus all the expenses is your NOI, your net operating income. And the reason your NOI is so important is because we use it on a big calculation, which is called cap rate. And really it's how you find the value of a property, right? So, and to give this as an example too, so like when you raise rents, let's say you raise rents and you're able to raise, 100 doors. Let's say you're able to raise $100,000 in additional income in a year on a typical property, right? And if that property was trading, so that's your NOI. Your NOI is $100,000. And if you were to use a cap rate is kind of like your the current market rate for that property, for that type of property, is going to equal the value. So at a 7.5 cap rate, if with $100,000 of NOI, it's $1.3 million. Okay, and here's what's crazy: that same $100,000 at a 6.5% cap rate, a little bit lower, is 1.5. And I'm going to do this on the fly because right now the market is frothy, and I'm seeing a lot of things trade at like 5.5 cap. So if I take that 100,000 and I divide it by 5.5% cap rate, that's $1.8 million. There's a $500,000 swing in that $100,000 of NOI from 7.5 to 5.5. And when you really understand the power of this, and when you drive and can raise NOI at a property, the power of that is exciting. It's what we do, the reason why we get into this business, because driving NOI is the job. And you can drive NOI by two ways. One is you raise your income level, and B, and this is what a lot of people don't understand and don't do very well, is by decreasing your expenses. One of the easiest ways to lower your expenses is people. Your staff tend to be the biggest line item, besides utilities sometimes, in your P&L. And so when we look at properties, we really strategically look at the people, and are they the right people? What are we paying them? Can we go find and integrate our team members? And this is why it's important to work with the right management company. We tend, with our management company, Lighthouse Management Solutions, we already have a training program internally for cultivating and training new managers. So we always have a manager in training, and they know that they can be deployed at our properties. And why is that important? Well, we already know kind of what the income going in is, and we know that they know our systems and processes, and more importantly, our culture to do this deal, right? And so they go in there and they execute so much better and so much faster, and we're able to save money because these people are usually trained where they can do the work of sometimes two people. Like, you don't always have to have a manager and then just a leasing person. I see this too often where managers are like, I'm a manager, so I don't lease the property. Like, what? Like, listen, our managers understand that their job is to lease. Their job is, absolutely, that may be what you do, and manage your team, because we believe all managers have to have that ability to lease. They have to. And it's only necessary to add another person if we're just that super busy. And the reason for that is because when we hire our managers, our management company, Lighthouse Management Solution, takes away all the other stuff that managers would typically do. So we don't pay bills at the property. We don't enter invoices. All that stuff most of those expenses, by the way, don't even come to the property. They go to the home office at our management company, where then they're keyed in and added and data entered at our management property, right? Like at their place. So we take a lot of the duties away from that manager that they don't have a whole else lot to do. So again, this is just being smart and understanding that's the diversity. And this is where we can win, where a lot of other operations can't. So you can save a lot of money by understanding that NOI is important, and that people, if you can dial that thing in, can create way big win opportunities for you. And I'll use this as an example. We're actually going to a property this week in Illinois. It's a student housing property, and their income line for staffing is like, I want to say $270,000. $270,000. That's a lot of people. And we're looking at it, and our budget says it should be like $180,000. That's almost $100,000. That's $1.3 million we can make right away using, this 6.5 cap rate, just by by letting the ones go. Like, this is going to be easy math to be able to make some changes dramatically, and all we're doing is cutting some of our expenses and adding the right people. So that NOI is a beautiful thing to manipulate, and so you want to understand that. All right, so then we're going to talk about debt service. Like, we don't say, hey, what's your loan or whatever. We talk about debt service. That's the way we talk about it in the commercial world. It is debt service. This is the loan, and it's usually stated in your yearly payment. Another thing we call that we usually talk about is CapEx, right? What is CapEx? CapEx is capital improvement. And in single family, we call it rehab, right? In commercial, we call it CapEx, right? And we usually talk about it in a cost per door for CapEx. So when you're underwriting, you're talking with a broker, you'll be like, hey, listen, I'm trying to dial in the CapEx per door. I've got it underwritten at, $3,500 a door. What do you think? Or before you tell them what you did, tell them what they think. Ask them what they think. Hey, what do you think that the CapEx should be per door at this property? Oh, I think it should be $6,500 or whatever. But anyways, the reason is you're talking to a broker in an intelligent way, in the way that we talk in the multifamily world. We wouldn't say, hey, how much of your money are you going to use it's called CapEx. And we do it in the form of cost per door. That's it, right? Oh, your cash flow before taxes, CFBT. Now, listen, your cash flow before taxes is a beautiful number most of the times, right? When you buy these properties, that is the amount of profit after debt service and bank reserve. And CFBT is like real money, real profits. You want to make sure that you're getting some CFBT because I think it is a beautiful thing. Now, and you should be trying to get lots of it. Next one is debt coverage ratio. Debt coverage, DCR. We actually call it most of the time. You'll hear brokers and lenders and stuff calling, hey, I need a DCR of this. Well, what does DCR mean? It's your debt coverage ratio. It's a measure of the cash flow available to pay current debt obligations. The ratio states net operating income as a multiple of debt obligations due within 1 year, including interest, principal, sinking funds, and lease payments. The higher this ratio is, the easier it is to obtain a loan, right? So simply put, if you've got this much in that you've borrowed from the bank, right, and you had a 25% whatever, you look at the income, you want to be able to say it's 1.25, or the profit of that income is, a DCR of 1.25. That means you've got 1.25 times the money to pay off that loan from your profit. Okay, so DCR is language for lenders. And then the cap rate, we just talked about it a minute ago. It's the rate that helps in evaluating a real estate investment. Cap rate equals your NOI, income divided by the current market value of the asset, right? Cap rate is one of those things that is usually misread or misunderstood. Performa. So let's talk about performas. Now, performa is another way to say, yeah, man, I think the value of the property is $20 million. Okay, this is my imitation of what brokers do when they put together their operating memorandums, their OMs, because I feel like sometimes they are smoking on the crack pipe, okay? It's the assumed or forecasted of informal information, okay, presented in advance of the actual or formal information. In other words, it's an ask guess of what they think is going to happen. Now, listen, we give performa too. So when we give that to our investors, we're saying this is the best ideal of what we think is going to happen with this investment. So it is called performa. But when I look at it from the broker's point of view, it makes me a little bit jaded. And so that's my performa version. You're welcome for what brokers do when they come up with these numbers sometimes. Okay, your operating memorandum is what we just talked about that the broker gives you. It's a sales brochure that brokers usually prepare to sell a commercial property. Now, again, keyword there is a sales brochure. Okay, it does not represent actual anything. You need a T12 and a rent roll, current rent roll and future rent rolls, and some past rent rolls to understand what's really going on with the property. Okay, the OM is just for you to kind of get the story, but it is by no means very accurate or very telling. It's the broker's version of what he thinks going on with a deal. And most of the time, last time I checked, most brokers are not buying multifamily apartments, because if they could, they would. And so, but they all act like they know how to do it. I know I beat a broker so bad, and I don't mean to. I actually love them. I mean, my best deals come from brokers. But on this podcast, my job is to give you the unfiltered, dirty truth of the game. And so we got to talk about it the way it is. All right. So acquisitions fee. This is another one of my favorites, acquisition fee. This is the fee the sponsors take for putting a deal together, normally between 3 and 5% of the purchase price. Normally 3, not very often 5, but sometimes we get 4, right? It all depends on the deal. All right, so now we have call to offers, right? So what is call to offers? Call for offers or to offers is the deadline date for all offers to be made for a property. So when a broker has a deal, he's going to say, hey, my call to offers is February 19th. I got a deal right now that call to offers is February 19th, meaning I have to have my deal to the broker on the 19th. Now, and I will actually be the last one to submit my deal, because I'm going to call the broker for pricing guidance. Why? Because that's how I get deals. I want to be the last one to submit so I can hopefully get what everybody else did. And if I need to go up on top of them a little bit, that's how I play the game. Okay, you got to play to win. Deferred maintenance. That's one you hear. We don't, in the single family world, you never say deferred maintenance, but in the multifamily world, that's what it's called. It's when, it's for all the stuff that's broke or avoided. It's all the crap that doesn't get fixed on a property. That's called deferred maintenance. And most properties that we tend to buy suffer a lot from this natural reoccurring event of, I guess owners never fixing up their crap. And that happens a lot. And so guess what? There's usually lots of opportunity if you see a lot of deferred maintenance on a property. So take that one and use it really, really well. Due diligence is usually the inspection period when you are looking at the properties, right? You actually get some due diligence time to do a financial audit and then also physical audit of the property. Then you have your LOI. Your LOI is your letter of intent. It's the documents used to make a formal offer on a property, right? So LOIs are important. A lot of times though, I see LOIs very complicated. I think that's a bad mistake. I think you should make your LOIs very easy to read for the seller, and then you hire an attorney to make your what's called PSA. That's another magic word, PSA, your purchase and sell agreement, but we call it PSA. Okay, make readies, right? When a unit becomes vacant, it's a make ready until it's rent ready, right? So a make ready is ones that need to be, they're vacant and they need to be made ready. And then a rent ready is when it's done, right? Market rents, that's the new lease, what new leases are going for in the area. I think that's important. All right, so let's kind of jump the gun here a little bit, and I just want to talk about a couple other things, and we'll wrap it up for today's podcast. But it's talking about plays. So I think when you're talking with brokers, understanding like the kind of, and I think there's 3 types of main plays. We can call some of the micro stuff too, but there's 3 plays, and one is like a momentum play, and all properties may suffer from a portion of each of these, by the way. That's okay. But you have your typical momentum play. A momentum play, and that's how you would say it. Hey, I'm looking for a deal that has a little bit of a momentum play to it, maybe with some value add occupancy, or maybe some repositioning. So these are the words, but we're gonna go over them. The momentum play is when it's already a stabilized property, and it's typically 90% occupied. It's not risky and not as risky, we'll call it, right? And you're just looking to get your 3 to 4% growth, year over year over year. That's just called a momentum play. You can buy it, it cash flows, and it pays. It's one of the easiest deals you can do, and it's kind of one that I recommend for your first one out of the gate, just because you're not going to have to spend a lot of CapEx to do this, where you can maybe get in trouble if you didn't do the CapEx right. So it's nice to have a deal that can pay out of the gate. Then you have your occupancy play, and that's pretty self-explanatory. It's when a property has low occupancy, and you can get paid a lot of money by filling it up with paying tenants. So we've done this at student housing a lot, where we'll find student housing that's typically running 80, 85%, and we go and make it 95. We make lots of money. We put a lot of money to our NOI because we're renting them by the bed, and when you can put all those beds in, you really can tremendously change your NOI and profit. So like your occupancy plays, right? Usually occupancy is a problem of management and deferred maintenance, right? So there's something wrong that people are not wanting to stay at your property, but it's usually fixed with money and great people at your property. So that's really easy to fix most of the times, unless you're just in a crappy area. But your comps will tell you that. Repositioning play. This is the big one. This is the one that it's a lot of work, but when you do this right, it can make you tons and tons of money on the back end. This is when you usually have low occupancy, and you typically need to do a lot of rehab to bring the property to a fresh, new standard. And it requires a lot of CapEx or money, and the occupancy normally drops when you're doing this type of deal, right? And it normally takes 2 to maybe 2.5 years to kind of complete the whole project and then fill the property back up. But when you when you fill it back up, you're filling it up with a brand new tenant base, because usually you're going to be, changing the rents $150, $200 if you're doing a major repositioning play. When you do that, we talked about that cap rate and the effects of what $100,000 of income means. So when you do that and you change it a couple $100,000 on a typical property, you're going to be able to create, like magic, like not just a little bit of income, but I'm talking the crazy, stupid kind. So that's it, my friends. Those are some magic words that we talk about, that we use in the multifamily world. Hopefully this has been great for you. As always, guys, I love it. I love this game. I love multifamily investing. This is some of the basics. We're back to the basics. Next week, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, and that's deal flow. How to get crazy, deal flow to show up in your computer each and every week, each and every month, to have those broker relations and really how to increase your chances of finding needles in the haystack. It really is about doing the basic stuff over and over, getting good at those little things that will change your life. It has changed mine. Multifamily investing is the place. It is the thing that will create your legacy wealth, that will give you a lifestyle like no other. But you have to do the work, and a lot of times it's in the little things, guys. If you believe it, you can achieve it, and your paradise is possible.